Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Joining us now to react to President Trump's first Board of Peace meeting is retired Lieutenant Colonel Darin Gaub. He's a geopolitical strategist who served as a Black Hawk helicopter pilot and battalion commander in the U.S. Army. Darin, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you here again. Now, Trump announcing the U.S. $10 billion commitment to the board. Now, given that this sprang from the 20-point Gaza peace plan, what's next here? How effectively can the Board of Peace enforce and sustain the ceasefire?
Yeah, I think this is untested water, Stephanie. And I think so. There's a lot of people going to be asking that question, and including myself. So the Board of Peace essentially becomes an international body that's not sanctioned as much as something like the United Nations or NATO would be concerned. And this is a bit of an experiment. So you're getting a very good coalition of the willing together, saying that we need to solve the Gaza problem, and the two-state solution is not that solution. It never has been. And they're willing to put some money towards it. Now, I'm not a big fan of us giving any money towards this because we've got plenty of other things to do. We fund the UN by and large. I don't think American taxpayer dollars should go towards essentially what becomes nation building again. However, the difference in this particular case is that the UN directly is not involved. So it could actually work out. It could be a lot better than that because we know the UN is dysfunctional. Can the Board of Peace get past that kind of dysfunctionality and actually do something productive for the world in general, but in the Middle East specifically, and do something with Gaza that makes a real difference? That remains to be seen, but you don't know until you try.
Speaking of the Middle East, Trump also announced that he plans to name his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, as a special peace envoy. How do you see that and the board's actions more broadly affecting other Middle East flashpoints?
Well, I think Jared Kushner is quickly learning the things that some of us have lived for 30 years or more. So the international community and all these different relationships, that it's not really something he's had a background in. So I'm sure that they'll continue to see Jared Kushner for what he is, which is an extension of Donald J. Trump. And how they react to that will be key. And it's going to be more about his ability to bend the ear of Trump than it is anything else. So, I think, again, what you're seeing is Trump trying to do the best he can to pick somebody that he thinks he can trust, regardless of whether or not they've had any background or experience in doing the things he is. And we hope him the best and hope it works out for sure, because there's a large portion of the earth and a large population that can be affected positively if we can bring a true lasting peace to the Middle East.
In terms of board members, why do you think major U.S. allies, the UK, Canada, France, Germany, much of Europe, have refused to join, giving various reasons? Will this impact the credibility or the potential impact of the board?
I don't think so ultimately, because we're talking mostly about, some European nations that have made their stances clear through votes in the United Nations against Israel specifically. But again, this is a board that is made up of nations that are willing to come on and be part of a solution. At least that's what they're saying. And they're willing to actually put money towards the rebuilding of Gaza too. That actually gives it the credibility it needs, because it's something new and they're putting money towards it. So it costs something. What we have to be careful of is that it doesn't turn into another international, regardless of the type, that it's infiltrated by those who might try to put people in place who are sympathetic to the Palestinian Liberation Organization or any of those types of organizations in order to influence its effectiveness and turn it into something that shouldn't be. So credibility initially good. The results will matter.
I want to go back to your earlier point about the United Nations, as Trump has criticized the UN, saying it hasn't fulfilled its potential in resolving conflicts, but said today that he would fund it to make it stronger and that the new board would ensure it lives up to its full potential. Can't this be the case if China, the second biggest funder of the UN, is involved?
I don't think so. China is ultimately going to be an adversary by their own choosing for a very long time. There's no doubt about that. And that's unfortunate because it could be so much better. But it's a typical communist party who sees the Western world as its enemy. In some cases, that might be legitimate. In some cases, in most cases, it is not. So I'm an advocate personally that the United States defund itself from the United Nations and leave and have the United Nations move somewhere else. I'll put that out there now. So I don't trust that body inherently. In essence, the UN is ineffective. And when it comes to trying to keep the peace in the Middle East, it's like they've been working against that entire objective in the first place. So we need to watch this body, this Board of Peace, and see if they can act something that the UN seems to have been working against a long time.
And at the meeting today, Trump also issued a warning to Tehran, saying if a deal isn't reached in the next 10 days, bad things will happen. Now, his warning comes on the heels of a massive military buildup around Iran. How are you reading this? Are we close to war breaking out?
It's hard not to read this and think back to a little bit of history and go back to around the end of 2017 and the beginning of 2018 when Trump was basically doing the same thing against North Korea. The difference with Trump is, one, he's going to move everything he has to make sure that all those pieces are in place should he choose to use them and Congress authorize its use. And he did the same thing with Korea. And ultimately with North Korea, we never had to use those. But he is never going to enter into negotiations of this kind and threaten military action without moving things like the Navy forces that we've all seen close to Iran to make sure that they know that he's serious. I don't think he wants to strike Iran, or truly think he wants a deal and wants peace. But he's not going to threaten the use of force on anything without having those pieces in place to make it look and potentially even be real.
A lot to watch here for sure. Darin Gaub, as always, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Tiffany.